This is Designing Security Products, where we talk about the intersection of product design and cybersecurity. And today I'm talking with Sachin Sahu, who is with Step Security. So, Sachin, great to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Williams.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Tell me a little bit about who you are and kind of your role at your organization, and a little bit about what you do on the day to day.
Okay, so I'm currently working as a founding product designer at Step Security. Prior to that, I've worked at Balkan ID and Accenture. So Step Security is a early stage cybersecurity startup, and it involves mostly designing the whole experience of the app. So right now we are making things turning things up from like ground up. So right now I have like work to do from from scratch. So we are rebuilding the whole platform to make it much more intuitive and user friendly. So yeah, so working on that, and my day-to-day task involves just talking to customers, working on their designs, wireframes, and all those things that a designer has. So yeah, having
Okay,
fun right there. Yeah.
great. Tell me a little bit about kind of how you got into cybersecurity.
So actually, I didn't started off as a design. Like my background is not in design. So I come from an engineering background. So I graduated as an IT engineer, and through campus placements, I actually got into a security field. So like in Accenture, I worked in as a security analyst, and I worked there for a year, and then from there, like I transitioned to design a product design. And from there on, I started working so in the UX UI field, in the product design field. So since I have been like my background is in security, so I have been designing security products from the start itself. So yeah.
Okay, very cool. So maybe tell me a little bit about the normal process. Like, let's say that you've got, I don't know, do you guys work in sprints typically, or how do you work as an organization?
So we have sprints, but it's mostly for engineering and all those things. But the design works a bit little different here. So like we have set things up based on like what we want. So for example, when right now we are planning to redesign all the things. So we prioritize on the value. So what is the most important part of the product, and so we are starting with that, and through then we go to less priority things. So we work based on that, and also it's a mix of a lot of things. Like if there is a customer requirement, we need something, so we work on that. So it's a mix of a lot of things, but yeah, mostly based on priority. Yeah,
And I think that's really cool. I think you said that you're basing the priority on value. So is that
yeah,
value to the customer? Is that value to the organization and the product, or how do you kind of balance those two things?
yeah. So basically, we see that as like a we value more in the customer side. So if we see that, okay, this is the part where the customers are coming, and this is the most important part of the product where
Mhm.
customers are viewing the information and all those things. So we are trying to focus on that first and then on the rest of this.
Okay.
So like before, I want to give the audience a bit of information about like what Step Security does.
Yeah.
So basically, Step Security helps companies secure their development, secure their development pipelines. So, in simple terms, while building a software, like when developers write code and then deploy it to production, there are multiple steps involved. And so, like running test, deploying the code, and then what Step Security does is tracks all the vulnerabilities and stuff in those steps and make sure that nothing is no vulnerabilities are introduced or something like that. And if there is like some vulnerability, it tries to alert you before it gets bigger. So in general, like we help the developers and security teams secure their software and from like start to finish. So that is what we are doing. So in our product, we have like a few the important areas that so users come in regularly. So now we are focusing more on that part, and slowly we'll be moving to other parts of the product in the design process.
Yeah. So you said the customers are coming in. Are you talking about the main things that they do as an existing customer, or is it more of kind of the onboarding and get started flow? That's good.
So it's the main thing that they do in the existing platform. So onboarding, so we are not doing the onboarding right now. It's like a later thing. So if you see in the software, the onboarding is more like a sign in via GitHub and all that. So the onboarding is like we have kept that for later, but it's morely on the like insights page where you get insights about your whole your tests and runs. So that is the part that we are focusing right now.
Okay, perfect. So walk me through kind of a typical scenario then. Let's say that you've got these set of features that are planning on coming out in the next release. And
Mhm.
so you have got these features that are here. Walk me through the process of how you as the product team talk about those things. What part does research and user testing with customers? Maybe even tell me a little bit about how, like, do you start with sketches and wireframes, or do you go straight to mockups, or
Mm.
and then how do you hand off to engineers? Just give me a 10,000 foot view of kind of how that process works at Step Security.
Basically, like in general stuff, we have like a lot of customer calls going on. So customer calls between founders, like I go to some calls. So in those calls, like and day-to-day calls, like we get a requirement that okay, this is the thing that we want, this is the thing that is required, and all that, and there is this flow that is not right. So we try to. So that is where the start of like what we plan, like we want to build this feature or something like that. So that is the point where we start. So once we get those requirements or needs from customers, or like there are some pain points that customer is describing it to us, like okay, this is the thing we want and this is happening. So we like internally then we discuss about it, like how it fits in our like product, like based on like our vision, like how what is the long-term vision that we're seeing and how it fits in that product. So we first see that we do like bunch of discussion how we can plan this feature and all those things, and once it is like fixed or once we have planned, okay, this is how we're gonna release it, like this is how we are planning to, and this is how it fits in the product in the long term. So then I go ahead and start working on the designs. I do some research, I do some secondary research, like if there are any competitors that are doing it, or like, any other products that are doing something similar. So I try to do that and directly jump into the like Figma and do some mockups and stuff. Since we are like in a very early stage, like we don't have a big team of design. I'm just the only one. So I just directly go to the Figma, just do the like very high level design of like all those things. And then there are like show it to the founders, like how does it look? What do you think of this? So there are like multiple rounds of iterations, multiple rounds of discussions, feedback rounds, and all those things internally. And then once we are like confident enough that okay, this is what we are thinking and this is how it fits in the product, then we go ahead and share it with our customers. So for customers to get feedback on that. Like either we do like a one-on-one like pro testing, observing like usability testing, or getting in general feedback in the Slack also works. So with a lot of other customers, like a variety of customers, and then once we get the feedback, if there is if there are if the feedback that aligns with our vision and our what we are thinking, we go ahead with like development phase. And there might be feedback sessions where like it's not what we are thinking that the customer is asking for. So we also get their the like validation from the customer that okay, this is what they are asking, not what we are thinking. So that is also there. So once we get the feedback and then we have the confidence, okay, the customer feedback is also positive and our feedback is also good, then we hand it off to the engineers to work on it. And after the work also, like we test it out, like, we test the software, like, we do like usability testing of like, share it with few customers to see if it works and like, do the beta testing and stuff. So that is how the cycle is completed
Okay.
right now.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like to me, you by the time it gets to where you're showing it to potential customers and actual customers, then are these are Figma files? These are pretty high fidelity. Do they look like the app is going to look?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And
yeah.
is it a clickable prototype type thing, or is it more like where you're showing screens and then say, hey, they would go from this screen, and then you would click this button, and it would take you to this screen and this interaction? Or how does that work?
So there are like multiple types. So let's say like there are 10 customers. So we share the screen for to few customers, like two or three customers, and we get feedback on that. We work on it, and then we build like a bit of more like on the feedback, like on the screens, like high level prototypes and all that. So
Okay.
then we share it with other customers. So like
Okay.
the feedback aligns with other two customers that we took in the beginning. So it's not like we are getting the same feedback with ever like all the 10 customers. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's always kind of a challenge. Or I think it is for me, kind of how to balance. You want to get as quickly from the idea and figuring out what it is that you're wanting to learn to customer
Yeah.
feedback. And so
Yeah.
do you how high fidelity, how much time should you invest in making it feel realistic to get that feedback
Hmm.
versus knowing that that's going to delay the feedback and the amount of time that you've invested in this? Then sometimes the customer comes back and says, no, 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 that's not what I want at all, right? So how do you balance those two things of like the amount of effort that you put into something
Hmm.
before you show it to customers?
So we used to like I used to directly build hi-fi uh screens in Figma, but that used to take some time and all that. So but yeah, then we built like a design system around it to just like
Hmm.
put the elements in there and quickly build the prototype. So quickly build the screen. So I think like it has become pretty fast like with Figma. Like you don't need much time to build like high with all the design systems available, components already available in the community as well in the marketplace. So just you have to pick and drop things. So I would say like it doesn't take much time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. So, do you have any? I'd love to hear some stories about
Mhm.
specific stories because I know they're always interesting to me when I hear about your time at Step Security. Maybe something that you were surprised by the reaction you got from customers, or it could be a very positive thing, or it could be, well, honestly, what's really interesting is to hear, like, hey, our team thought that this feature was going to be really valuable, and then when we showed it to customers, the customers went, nah, and then how did you adjust based on that? I'd love to hear if you have a story like that. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so we have one story I have a recent one. So well, where we are working on, so it's not released yet. Like the product is not released, but I'm just saying sharing the high level things. So basically, we were working on the one of the core pages of our product and uh, core pages of product, and we designed it and we felt like okay, this is the right thing to release and all that, and we've shared it with few customer and they were okay, but when we just shared it on Slack and we got feedback there, and from previous calls we assumed that this is what it's gonna be that the customers want, but when we jumped on a call, they said okay, we just want only this. So we are building like a whole bunch of features in that. And that increased the, I would say cognitive load of the,
Mm-hmm.
that thing. So like customers, this is too much, and I don't think we'll be using this. And but then we got to know that okay, this is just the only thing that they want. We don't need to do so. Once we got the feedback and we reiterated it and shared it with them, they're like pretty positive with it. So yeah, I think that was that was like a very because since we are working on right now, I don't think like there is like a major story here like with big plots and twists, but yeah. Like
Nice.
I have something from my past org, so which is like a big thing is like when we were working on one of the tools, and it was a pretty big tool which was used by the whole org, and there were like I would say 50 to 60,000 users using that tool.
Oh wow.
Like all of them are like admins and all those things. So that was used, for all the admins used to use it, and when we so the team wanted to rebrand it, rebrand the tool because it was like pretty old. It was like built 20 years ago. So it was like a legacy, tool. So they wanted to rebrand it. And when we were rebranding it, so I started like doing tests, like how they use it and work on the flow. So when we were working on the flow, like I found out that there are like security flaws where someone can easily gain access to the other tools because it was a like an admin tool for like bunch of softwares. So like where you can reset password and stuff like that. So it had so they had like a list of passwords that shouldn't be used in the tool. So, but when I tried to test it, paste the password there, it worked. So basically, like anyone can, anyone can, use it with that. So this was like a major security flaw, and it was like going for like 20 years. Like it was there for 20 years, but no one noticed it. Uh, uh,
If I'm hearing right, it's
yeah,
like it was a suggestion. It ended up being a suggestion of what types of passwords you should use rather
yeah,
than a requirement,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right. And like when I copied the password and pasted it, there, like it worked. Like I mean, how it's happening. So anyone could have used the same password and gain access to like some major tools.
Okay. But I guess there weren't any known security breaches in that, right? Which is amazing if
Yeah,
the product was built that way.
yeah, yeah. I was surprised that like there are no security breaches. I think it was because it's like an internal tool, and due to that, no one would have thought of doing that. So, but yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. So when you were working on, I know you mentioned this design system that you had.
yeah,
Where do you look for inspiration as far as on a component and a workflow level, but then also just kind of the overall look and feel of the product? Well, let me ask this: when you joined the team, which I guess you said you're a founding team member, so there was
yeah,
no design system. There was
yeah,
all of the stuff that's there. You
yeah,
designed, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
then, yeah, where do you get your inspiration?
So basically, there are a lot of existing design systems and a lot of open source design systems in the market. So I tried to use that and combine it with our own branding. So mixed it with our own branding. So like there are a few elements that I picked it from there, and now I have mixed it with our own branding. So like it made sense. So I did because like I cannot design the whole, like I'm just one person and how I cannot design the whole design system, right? Like, and you also need like a lot of time to do that.
Mhm.
So just as a quick thing, like I just changed the colors and picked elements from there and then mixed our elements from there, changed few things. So and that worked perfectly fine for us. So yeah, I did that. And inspiration is there are like a lot of companies that post their design system like that is like openly available. So I took inspirations from there as well. Yeah, like Atlassian is one of the major one that I took inspiration from, and there is like Shadsian, Atlassian, and I also talk to like developers about this design system because they are the ones that will be those are the people that will be implementing this design system thing.
Sure.
So I asked them like, what are the design systems that you guys can So they themselves have like their trend going on. Like if you ask the front end guys, they have like trends like these components are in the market that are like in trending and all those things. So they shared it with me. I just went through it and picked elements from there. So it's easier to implement as well. The code is readily available and you have the components and things. So
Gotcha.
all
So
those things.
just makes it faster for you to be able to go
Yeah.
from concept to
Yeah.
actually in the code in the product, right? If you're able to
Yeah,
use
yeah,
existing patterns.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's
yeah,
great. So you mentioned that you're the solo UX UI person that's there at a
yeah,
security
yeah,
company. So if you were going to be talking to someone else who was
mm,
coming in as the very first person in an organization
mm.
that's doing UX UI, what advice would you give
Advice. So I would say so one advice I would give is like to work on the work on their craft consistently. It's like getting more realistic inspirations, not
Mm,
like concepts and all those things. Things that are readily available in the market and that has been implemented. So that is the one advice that I'll give because that makes things easier to build and you can build things fast, really fast. Because we are a startup, we need to do things really fast. We have to look at like something that is realistic and doesn't take a lot of time to implement. So if there is like something very, very concept, like, with a lot of interactions, animations and all those things, those things won't work.
mm,
I'm not saying it's not, implementable, but it will take a lot of time to implement. That is the, advice that I give and generally is like pick your inspirations where like, the product is already built. I think one great source would be like Mobbin. So I use that like a lot. Yeah. So
so that's
Mobbin.
Mobbin, is that right? Mobbin?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Marvin.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's great. I've looked at that too and found
yeah,
some examples of patterns that are there.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
I've found that or first starting and looking at existing patterns of the way
yeah,
this thing is done, right?
yeah,
Um, ends up making it easier for us to create something that's going to work well. But then also,
yeah,
there are probably patterns that our users are already familiar with, right? So they don't have to learn the concept.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like it helps with the mental model thing, the users already know, and a platform, a good platform with like good design have this, so then it's like a proof that it works. So some social, validation that this works. So you can try that out in your product. So.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I know that the step security team is fairly small. How many are on your team right now?
Around 10 people, 10 to 12 people. So yeah, yeah.
Okay, so as you've talked with other folks in the industry, does that seem pretty normal to have someone that's a dedicated UX UI person on a security product on a team of 10? Does that seem normal or
So I have seen this happening recently where security teams are getting aware about that customers need a better UX
mm,
in their platform. So I have this seen this like a recent trend. So back when I started, it wasn't the case where security professional didn't even knew about like there is this thing. So, but I think from past few years, like they have started to know about it. Yeah, so I think I see this as a recent trend, not like from the start.
okay?
So
Yeah, I would echo that. It
yeah,
seems like I think you're right. It's really just been in the last few years that it seems like
yeah,
smaller teams are incorporating, and I guess they're seeing the value and the power of having
yeah,
a professional there. So I think that's encouraging. I think it's encouraging
mm,
for those of us that are in the profession, but also for these young security companies, right?
mm,
The sooner they understand the value of this, then they're going to have a
yeah,
better chance at being
yeah,
successful because they're getting feedback from their customers.
yeah,
And I think it's also
uh,
better for the end users too, right? They're going to have a better
mm,
experience with these products.
mm. Yeah, and one of the I keep on I have talked to few customers and they talk about like security products. So one of the products they talk a lot about is like Wiz, if you have
Mm,
heard about it. So their design is pretty good, and I think like they it started like 4 to 5 years back, and I think that they have set a good standard in the industry about design and stuff like that. So I think from there started. I would I'm just guessing, but I
mm.
believe that
Well,
you know
especially when you consider the commercial success that Wiz has been able to
yeah,
have. It's
yeah,
kind of crazy the rocket ship that they have been, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I'm
The
sure they
growth
get
is
a lot
like
of
pretty
kudos.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are they doing? What's different about them that hasn't been done before? And I think one of those is
Mm,
a big emphasis on the experience that the user gets. So
mm. Yep. Yeah.
cool. So if you were going to talk to an early stage founder of a security
Mm,
product, what
hmm.
advice would you give them on how and when they should incorporate UX and UI?
Okay. So one advice I would give is like to early stage founder is about design is like design is not something, that will make look things good. It's not about that. It's about like solving problems, solving the experience problem from the start of a product to, end of the product. It's about the whole experience of the product. It's not about just making it look good. So I think like a lot of founders have this notion about like, this is just designers are just to make things look good, but it's not that. It's about like, whole experience of the product, like starting from your landing page to product to like, and like, how they are moving in your product, how they are using it. So everything in your product, like it's an experience. And that is what like, helps your customers to come back to the product. So a lot of right now we are talking about Wiz, right? Because you see the design of that, like, a lot of customers have been talking about it. So they have a like good experience in their platform, and that is what people talk about it. That is why they talk about it. So I mean, you can see the like direct impact of the design in their product. So that is what I like. I give advice to the like early stage founder is like design is not something. It shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be like make it as a core of your product, like a core part of your strategy, not just like afterthought.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Steve Jobs, I'm pretty sure his quote was, "Design is not the way the thing looks. Design is." So yeah, I think that's 100% in line with what you said right there, and I completely agree as well. So security products are sometimes unique in that there's a lot of complexity that's in them,
Mhm.
and that can make it sometimes challenging to come up with a way to keep the interface simple, right? How do you keep
Mhm.
things simple in your user experience when you have a really complex product and very complex technical things that people need to be able to do? So how do you balance those things?
So yeah, a lot of times security is like completely opposite to like, design. So in design, we like, try to reduce like the friction of like, doing things. But security is like, you want to add more things to, secure the software or secure the product or like, secure the uh secure the things. So yeah, so all, these two go like opposite in opposite directions. Like if you see an example of like multi-factor authentication, you see that. So every time you log in, like you'll have to enter like a code, multi-factor authentication code, and a lot of times users try to overcome that by like not logging. So you are reducing your products. I would say like, amount of users that will come to your product. So you are adding more frictions to your product. So users try to like, overcome that by like, not adding like a multi-factor authentication or like, so that also adds like a security, like, reduces your security of your product. And also like, reduces the, I would say, intuitiveness of the product. So like I have seen companies so like this two-factor authentication thing, like I've seen companies do it in a way that like, you enter the password once, enter the PIN code once, and then they have this check mark where it's like, remember this device. So now you have like, you have done the security part as well, and now you have improved the experience as well. So now you're balancing the design, like the experience part, and as well as the security part. So that is how they balance. But in security products, like it's really complex. So what I try to do is like when we get feedback from customers, we try to see things like what is important, like what is the most important things that they want in their screen. And there could be like a lot of other stuff that they need. I try to like, remove that and like hide it somewhere else, like, maybe inside a menu or something somewhere else. Uh, so that is how I do it. But a lot of times like security products are so complex that you can't even think of any interface. Like, there isn't any like, inspirations on the internet about like security product because all of them are like, closed, like, they don't share any of the things in the market. So if you go to Mobin as well, like you won't see any of the like inspirations for the security product B2B space as well. So it's kind of hard to see like how others are doing and all those things. So you have to create like new patterns, new things inside the tool itself to reduce the friction and all those things. And a lot of things could be done like easier. Like I think the best would be to do like usability test, I would say. Like once you have designed that thing and like do bunch of tests with the user, asking bunch of questions about the product, like how they like it, how easy it is for them, and also with like variety of users, like new users, old users, and someone with like very technical, very tech savvy person. So those kind of people would be like doing tests with them would make the interface more, I would say, like user friendly, and those feedbacks help a lot in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that's great insight that's there. So,
Yeah,
Sachin, this has been great.
yeah,
I really appreciate you taking some time today to talk with us about this. And the whole reason for this podcast is just try to get more people that are industry in this industry, just learning from one another. And
yeah.
so I appreciate your time today, and it's been super helpful. So awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Willem. Thank you for having me in this podcast. Yeah.